Good morning, everyone. I am Ivan Person, and at the invitation of the organization of this first International Symposium on Informational Biophysics Applied to Health, I would like to present a topic that should be very interesting for everyone and for those people who, like me, navigate integrative and complementary medicines, with the objective of self-development and expansion of the range of related knowledge. This is the BioNLS bioresonance, also known as BioNLS biospelling, a technique aimed at identification of imbalances and the achievement of frequential rebalances of our organ systems. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Neto for this excellent opportunity to participate in this symposium with all of you. The technique called bioresonance/NLS or BioNLS graphy has been considered a new integrative therapy, developed in Russia by the Institute of Practical Psychophysics in the 1980s. Development began with an investigation system that would allow tracking any conditions in the body through or resulting from changes in the frequential characteristics of its organic tissues, individual cells, chromosomes, and even enzymes and hormones. This research system uses mathematical and statistical concepts of nonlinear analysis, NLS, which are quite advanced information technologies. NLS bioresonance is based on the hypothesis that the human body has an electromagnetic information structure, and that any components of each of our organ systems, i.e., each organ, tissue type, gland, cell, and even chromosomes, DNA, etc., have specific electromagnetic frequencies that are compatible with their biochemical structures and patterns in the state of health. These frequencies are currently known, measurable, and catalogued. They are standard frequencies, which support health status and homeostasis. However, such standard frequencies can be influenced by various external factors, such as nutritional deficiencies, stress level, physical activities and sedentary lifestyle, work and consumption habits, toxic substances, iatrogenesis, emotional issues, external radiations. In fact, the number and intensity of electromagnetic influences and external radiations to which we are exposed is increasing, among others. All these factors can then trigger frequential changes in organs or tissues, etc., which, subsequently, could evolve into dysfunction processes, pH changes, favoring the appearance of pathogenic microorganisms, disorders of organ functioning, and appearance of symptoms, signs and syndromes and diseases. These factors would begin in the microphysiological sphere, evolving over time to acute alterations and chronic states. These physiological changes correspond to the principle of disease development. This process demands, then, the need for compensatory reactions through frequency rebalancing and/or pharmacological treatments for correction and/or prevention. In other words, from a physiological point of view, the NLS bioresonance theory considers that a disease would have its origin in the frequential changes of the organic regions involved. NLS bioresonance works by using very low corrective vibration frequencies, between 1.8 and 8.2 Hz, transmitting information to the brain, to investigate, interpret and correct identified frequency imbalances in all organ systems. Scope of application of NLS bioresonance. In general, bioresonance can be applied to perform evaluations of people's health status, based on the frequencies obtained, individually, customized for each type of tissue, organ, cell of the human body. It is also possible to visualize potential agents related to diseases, for example, aspects related to the presence of allergenic substances, the influence of certain types of foods harmful to that person, the presence of microorganisms and their toxins, possible needs for nutraceuticals, the presence of trace elements, heavy metals, etc., and energy deficiencies, among other aspects. It is also possible to make comparisons between the current health status with thousands of disease profiles that are cataloged in the equipment's database. It is possible to verify the existence of similar frequencies of hundreds of microorganisms, i.e., bacteria, viruses, fungi, parasites, in different types of tissues, organs, etc. It is also possible to make comparisons between the states, before and after, the application of vibratory frequencies for each tissue, organ, cell of the human body, and thus obtain qualitative and quantitative measures of the percentage of improvement of these frequential levels. We can, in the same way, evaluate each organ system and its interaction with the other systems. Operating principles. We can divide the question of the working principles of the technique into two main aspects: the process of prospecting for frequential imbalances and the realization of frequential rebalancing. Prospecting for frequential imbalances refers to the identification of existing frequential and/or physiological imbalances in the person under evaluation. It is important to mention that it is exclusively up to the medical field to carry out clinical prognosis, that is, the discovery of possible existing diseases. The BioNLS prognostic system is based on the spectral analysis of torsion magnetic fields of living organisms, and also on the tracking of health status from changes in these torsion fields. Biological structures have a bioenergy field that includes magnetic vortex oscillations recorded in a matrix. Pathological biological processes associate unstable magnetic vortex states, metastates. Scientists from the Institute of Practical Psychophysics, Russia, isolated and recorded the states of unstable magnetic vortices associated with the corresponding biological processes. Torsion fields are generated by the spin associated with the particles. Depending on the orientation of the spin, left and right twist fields can be generated. Torsion fields are also influenced by biological fields. Everyone has an extremely weak low-frequency electromagnetic field that can be distorted in the event of health problems. Unless bioresonance, as a prognostic technique, is based on these concepts, which are part of the theory and logic of quantum entropy, developed by Lakhovsky and Nesterov, with concepts by N. Tesla, R. Volume 50, V. N. Kravkov, V. Targetova, among others. The implementation of the exchange of information between the equipment and the body was developed with the creation of a circuit called trigger sensor. It picks up the faint signal fluctuations of the human brain. To function, it needs to receive a signal about the need to examine a particular organ. This signal is sent to the brain by the bioinductor, a type of headphones, which has coils that emit very low frequencies, less than 10 Hz, alpha/theta. The brain responds and the trigger sensor picks up the response. Real-time analysis of the information received at the trigger sensor is performed. After this flow of information, the software compares the data stored in the system with those received corresponding to the person being evaluated. Evaluations of dysfunctions, pathologies, microorganisms, potential effects of allopathic, homeopathic, herbal substances, etc., are carried out. Distorted frequencies are detected and correction frequencies are sent to restore the electromagnetic field. Application of the technique. The application of BioNLS bioresonance basically uses a set of equipment and devices that includes central control module/bioinductor, headphone/resonance chamber/computer, and computerized system. The computerized system stores a wide range of frequential information regarding the many pathologies that affect each of the organic systems: gastrointestinal, respiratory, cardiovascular, musculoskeletal, urological, endocrine, lymphatic, sensory, nervous. It also stores frequential information regarding herbal plants, allopathic products, medicines, homeopathies, nutraceuticals, trace elements, lithotherapy, Bach flower remedies, extracts, Bach essences, chakras, medical cosmetics, vitamins, matrix of emotions, micronutrients, physiotherapy, mineral indicators, others. It also stores typical frequency information on specific types of microorganisms, bacteria, viruses, fungi, parasites, allergenic substances, and food. Thus, once these conclusions are established through the equipment, it is possible to emit electromagnetic frequencies of frequency correction, so that standard frequencies are emitted automatically, promoting the gradual regularization of the frequential conditions of that previously affected region. Thus, once the standard frequencies are assimilated in their specific locations, the physiological issues existing in those locations tend to enter into a process of regeneration, with the consequent possibility of elimination of the disease, and return to the health circumstance. The basic sequence of an BioNLS bioresonance session corresponds to the reception of the person to be evaluated. 1. Step 1. The therapist greets the person and settles them in an armchair. Next, start a conversation in order to understand why the person is there, what their complaints are, and any existing frequential imbalances. This corresponds to the collection of an anamnesis form. 2. Step 2. This is followed by the placement of the bioinductor, a type of headphone, on the person and the application of the protocol that includes the activation and operation of the equipment, in which case the process may vary depending on the equipment used. 3. Step 3. The form with data collection, name, sex, blood type, is filled in on the program screen, which will serve as a basis for the system to define a set of initial slides to be checked, which corresponds to the beginning of the prospecting process. By means of software commands, the therapist initiates a process of prospecting frequencies in various body regions defined by the system itself, depending on the person's gender, age, and blood type. 4. Step 4. At the end of this prospecting, which is a very quick process, the equipment issues results and statistical comparisons in specific reports, which will be used to prioritize the areas that eventually require greater need for frequent corrections. These frequency corrections will also occur automatically at the therapist's command and include frequencies of phytotherapies, lithotherapies, allopathies, florals, etc. Slides correspond to accurate photos/drawings of the locations to be checked, organs, tissues, glands, cells, etc. These slides are stored in the system and can be chosen for evaluation automatically or manually. It is on these drawings on the computer screen that the prospecting process will take place. We'll see below how this happens. The drawings of these slides have been carefully elaborated by specialists in illustrations and physicians, who faithfully represent their real constitutions, such as Dr. Frank Netter, whose Atlas of Human Anatomy is perhaps the most important atlas of anatomy used worldwide. A prospecting of a slide consists of the process of tracking it, with the graphical definition of qualitative and quantitative frequential values, related to the existence of frequency and entropy imbalances assigned in the form of colored symbols on the slides under evaluation. These symbols refer to a scale of values known as the Fleinler scale. The Fleinler scale is a tool used as a specific marker system to highlight a person's real pattern or pathological condition. In the case of BioNLS bioresonance, it was defined by the Fleinler scale with 6 symbols and color coding. These symbols, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, are automatically distributed over a given chosen blade of the body, e.g. head longitudinal section, so that, depending on the types, quantities and distribution of these symbols on the blade, assessments of frequential imbalances can be performed. In all prospections of imbalances and treatments for frequential rebalancing, the results are evaluated on the 6-point polychrome Fleinler scale. In general, the first two, 1 and 2, correspond to excellent frequencies when compared to the standards. A value of 3 indicates that the region in which it is positioned is within its frequency pattern. The indication of a value of 4 should be interpreted as the existence of a probability of a slight frequency change in relation to the standard value, but with a subclinical character. A value of 5 indicates that there is a probability that the prospected region may contain principles of acute physiological alterations, and finally, a value of 6 indicates that there is a greater probability that the evaluated region may have chronic physiological alterations. Here, it is worth mentioning that the Fleinler scale is approximate, serving mainly for a preliminary assessment of the adaptive capacity of an organism, that is, the strengthening or weakening. Strongly pronounced divergences cannot be mistakenly interpreted as illnesses without further investigation. This level of information has its relevance, but it should be used in conjunction with other equally or more relevant information that will be commented on. I would like to comment that, in some models of equipment, There is a specific resource that allows us to observe the image, as in the performance of increasingly deep histological sections to perform verifications, prospections, and frequency rebalancing. Here we have a first example of the use of the technique of automatic deepening of an organ, in this case the stomach, in the direction of its ultrastructure. Blade 1, Stomach. Lamina 2, Inner wall of the stomach. Slide 3 cell. Slide 4 chromosome set. Lamina 5 chromosomal. Lamina 6 DNA. Lamina gene. Depending on the equipment used, the prospecting sequence could be carried out automatically or manually. A second example would be the pancreas evaluation sequence. 1. Slide 1 pancreas, pancreas. 2. Slide 2 ultrastructure of tail of pancreas. 3. Slide 3 B cells of pancreatic islets. 4. Slide 4 set of female chromosomes. 5. Slide 5 6th pair of chromosomes. 6. Slide 6 DNA ultrastructure number 1, DNA ultrastructure number 1. 7. Slide 7 gene relacionado a insulina, insulin production control gene. In this video, we have just a simple example of the beginning of the prospection of some slides of the respiratory system. We will choose 8 of the various slides that we wish to prospect. Right and left side paranasal/right, and left lungs/lungs and pleura posterior views/coronary section larynx, and trachea/bronchi cross sections/trachea and bronchi. We chose the research mode, starting the automatic prospecting process for each chosen slide. Notice that prospecting consists of obtaining red and blue graphs, input and output, where we can associate entropy levels, on the left scale, in relation to the frequencies of various groups of systems, organs and tissues with similar frequencies, on the lower scale. These frequency groups are arranged on the graph according to those coarser systems and tissues. Example, the lower frequencies on the horizontal axis, such as the skeletal system and coarse connective tissues, to the subtlest ones, example, the cerebral cortex, retina, optic nerve, sensory system. It is also possible to perceive the assignment of the colored symbols of the Flendler scale in each evaluated slide, which additionally provides us with an overview of their frequency and entropy variations. The research time is fast, depending, of course, on the number of blades to be evaluated, and also on the model of equipment with which you work. It also depends on the choice of the degree of depth of the evaluation to be carried out, which, in general, could be simplified, normal, or detailed degree. These options also vary depending on the equipment used. At the end of the prospection, a screen is obtained with several conclusive information, for each prospected slide, about its general state of frequency imbalance in relation to the established patterns. The appearance and types of information on this screen vary depending on the type of equipment used, i.e., with more or fewer features. From here, we will be able to evaluate each prospected slide individually through the results of the Fleinler scale, i.e., the colored symbols assigned, as well as the graphic results obtained. In addition, we can open the directories window, which gives us the opportunity to evaluate the relationship of the evaluated slide with various aspects, such as pathologies, microorganisms, allergenic substances, and many other options that, at technical discretion, can be chosen for evaluations and use in the processes of frequency rebalancing of the prospected slide. As an example, from the indication of rhinitis on the right nose and paranasal slide, we can perform an entropy analysis and obtain an estimate of the stage of evolution of the frequency imbalance related to rhinitis. Results of the evaluations are evidenced mainly through images with the topography of the affected area, Fleinler scale symbols, numerical indicators with dispersion values, spectral similarity between standard frequencies versus actual frequencies obtained, frequency graphs with graphical interpretation of entropy values x standard frequencies, entropy analyses with evolutionary graphs of diseases, and Digito test with comparative analyses such as before and after. A very useful specific feature of evaluating results is entropy analysis. This is a graphical mathematical model, built automatically, based on a given disease under evaluation, which allows interpolating the frequency curve obtained from the person evaluated, with a set of curves that demonstrate how the disease would progress. This makes it possible to locate the person's frequency curve in terms of the evolution of the imbalance related to the disease under evaluation. Another very interesting and important feature is the possibility of evaluating biochemical substances, example, hormones, enzymes, vitamins, markers, etc., related to biochemical homeostasis, which influence the observed health outcomes. Similar to what happens with entropy analysis, the system also automatically generates a set of 7 graphs whose minimum, intermediate, and maximum values of the evaluated biochemical substance are represented. In this graphic set, the one that corresponds to the real value presented by the person is highlighted. When we mention the possibility of elimination of imbalances and/or diseases, it is important to emphasize that the frequency rebalancing of unbalanced organ systems is as relevant as the control of external factors, that is, healthy nutrition, the practice of frequent physical exercise, emotional and stress control, hydration, control under the influence of radiation, and several other aspects already mentioned above. It is obvious that all these aspects are key, both in pharmacological treatments and frequent rebalancing. Likewise, it is worth noting that both terms, cure and improvement, are extremely relevant. After all, in healthcare, there is the concept that nothing remains static, either it degenerates or it regenerates. Often, the healing process is auspicious, while the improvement process is doable, even sufficient. Sometimes, triggering the regeneration process, even slowly, could be very significant for the person being treated. As with all therapeutic techniques, the fundamental role of NLS bioresonance is to work towards the process of health regeneration, always focusing on healing or improvement, and in permanent harmony with conventional medicine and integrative and complementary techniques. In practice, the process of frequential rebalancing aimed at healing or improving the person occurs, briefly, through the sending of various forms of frequential emissions. Undoubtedly, one of the main resources of NLS bioresonance related to the process of frequency rebalancing is metatherapy, which consists of one of the main ways of using vibrational waves related to the generation of scalar energy. For many centuries, proven natural healing methods such as acupuncture, homeopathy, and plant healing have used this principle with great success. Metatherapy considers these concepts, but with a modern approach, which uses advanced electronic and computer technology, which makes it possible to always find the correct frequencies, specifically adapted to the person and most effective for the process of frequency rebalancing. The therapy system transmits this information from the computer to the body in exact amounts, and activates a process of self-healing and the elimination of toxins. Metatherapy helps the body to better cope with the problems, toxins and allergens discovered and to eliminate them. In addition, the most relevant causal factors of organic disorders, such as chronic stress, disturbing reactions of the central nervous system, can be neutralized due to the application of therapy. It is worth mentioning that both factors are important for the activation of the immune system and the self-healing process, even enabling the improvement of chronic diseases. More explicitly, metatherapy consists of the effect resulting from the application of inverted electromagnetic frequencies directly related to the specific electromagnetic frequencies of existing pathological processes. Although it is not explicit in the manuals, the result of two vector electromagnetic waves, of the same modules and directions, but with opposite directions, corresponds to the generation and application of radiant energy, also called scalar energy. In this way, it is possible to apply, for example, frequencies that are inverse to those corresponding to each of the frequency imbalances detected and related to the possible diseases, as well as frequencies that are inverse to those established for each microorganism detected, allergenic substances catalogued, foods contraindicated, etc. It is also possible, indirectly, to apply correction frequencies equivalent to those of the many types of chemical, biochemical substances, allopathic, homeopathic, with the automatic preparation of frequential fluids. In addition, it is possible to directly apply specific standard frequencies of healthy organs, tissues, glands, etc., to those same places found with frequency imbalances. As the therapy sessions take place, the processes of improvement or cure can be verified, both by the comparative indicators emitted by the equipment, and obviously, by means of conventional medical examinations, and also by means of the testimonies of the people who have gone through the therapeutic process. Currently, there are some types and models of equipment with different basic or more advanced technical resources for the application of BioNLS bioresonance. Thus, depending on the more or less current version for the same type or model of equipment, the features could vary. The original technology and equipment are of Russian origin. Other equipment is mainly from China. At the time of purchasing equipment, more than new or used, the type and model is relevant due to the existing resources. This should be checked on a case-by-case basis, depending on the purpose, the resources, and the amount or cost one wishes to invest. Some examples of types of equipment produced in China include MetaHunter, Biophilia, Bioplasm, 9DNLS, etc. In general, the differentiations between them are the existence of specific evaluation resources, greater or lesser accuracy of results, processing speeds, and the existence of report generation. With bioresonance, we can obtain significant results in several areas and types of diseases. A. Chronic, degenerative diseases of all kinds, autoimmune, adjuvant therapy for tumors. B. Weakened immune system, chronic infections. C. Acute and chronic pain and inflammation. D. Fatigue, exhaustion, sleep disturbances, depression, psychosomatic illnesses, migraine, irritable bowel syndrome, food, respiratory or skin allergies, gastritis, sexual impotence, infertility. E. Chemical sensitivity, electrical sensitivity, eczema, neurodermatitis, environmental medicine. F. Hormonal disorders, menopausal difficulties, PMS. G. Growth problems, behavioral difficulties. H. Symptoms of the spine, back and joint pain, tension, arthritis. I. Injuries, bone fractures. J. Sports medicine, preparation for competitions. It is interesting to comment on some tests and evaluations of the efficacy of the BioNLS bioresonance technique carried out in institutions recognized as reference centers. This is the case of the study. Application of three-dimensional BioNLS research in diagnostics of gallbladder and gall duct concretions. Carried out in April 2013 at Hospital Israelita Albert Einstein, SP/Brazil, whose results were very promising. In Table 3, extracted from the original article, we can see a comparison between different methods of detecting concretions, stones, in the gallbladder and bile duct. In the table, 3 indicators are evaluated: response level, specificity, and accuracy. The comparative results are quite relevant. We can notice the difference, for example, the 3D-NLS, equipment of the BioNLS bioresonance technique, and the computed tomography, for example. When we look at some medicinal techniques, that is, health treatments, we observe some interesting, synchronic and convergent characteristics. For example, between conventional medicine and the methods employed by NLS bioresonance, there are several converging aspects. However, it is interesting to mention that conventional medicine is mainly based on the pharmacological issue, that is, on the use of chemical and biochemical substances, in addition, of course, to physiotherapeutics/surgical methods, among others. Note that, most of the time, if there are symptoms, syndromes, or signs of health care, medical help is sought in conventional medicine. Usually, the person undergoes evaluations and receives a set of recommendations, which include, for example, suggestions for changes in habits and drug prescriptions that, in theory, will cause, in most cases, the existing symptoms, syndromes, or signs to decrease and/or disappear. These chemical or biochemical substances have, as one of their main characteristics, specific vibratory frequencies related to their own physicochemical constitutions, and which, as a rule, will exert beneficial bioelectrical frequencies along with the characteristic frequencies of the affected sites. In this way, if it weren't for the side effects that exist in the vast majority of recommended chemical and biochemical substances, perhaps the benefits would actually be much more interesting. Unfortunately, these side effects, or even adverse events, can always appear since, in order to reach the target site, such substances need to circulate through any part of our organ systems, gastrointestinal, respiratory, musculoskeletal, urological, cardiological, nervous, etc., generating unwanted and potentially harmful impacts. However, in any case, the root cause of the greater or lesser efficacy of health treatment with the use of drugs lies in the interactions or interferences of their characteristic electromagnetic frequencies with the bioelectromagnetic field of the organs or tissues in imbalance. On the other hand, NLS bioresonance is based on the premise that, when the existing frequencies and imbalances and those patterns are known, it becomes possible to act on the frequency correction of the affected sites, which will stimulate the return of homeostasis. Thus, it is a technique with excellent preventive and corrective results, and practically no side effects. Since it has already been developed in several countries, I believe that NLS bioresonance should be considered very soon in Brazil and Latin America, a promising integrative and complementary technique that will contribute to the improvement of people's health. Of course, here, unfortunately, the existing literature available to date is still very scarce. Sometimes, a lot of research is needed in literary sources that are practically unavailable in libraries and virtual repositories of reliable technical and scientific articles. The almost non-existence of text in our language has always represented a barrier to the desired development and learning. Thus, I believe that a path of research and development should be through partnerships with universities so that statistically supported studies and scientific articles can be developed, so that we can increasingly consolidate this technique and make it increasingly known and used for the benefit of people's health. To conclude, I would like to congratulate Dr. Neto for organizing this symposium. I am absolutely sure it will be a success, and also thank him for the invitation to this lecture. I will always be available for contacts and conversations on this topic that I presented, either in person or by visiting our website, bioperson.com.br, where we even have basic and advanced training courses available. Thank you.